Welcome to the PairSoft Full Circle Workplace and PaperSave webinar. I'm Josh Campanaro. I'll be kind of walking us through today. The agenda today is really going to be some introductions. You'll see the full procure-to-pay combination that PairSoft offers. And then we'll show a little bit of a workplace demo, our procurement solution, followed by a PaperSave demo with our solutions experts here. And then we'll end with a Q&A. So feel free to throw questions into the chat. We'll be sure to answer those as best we can towards the end. And if something specific comes up about your organization, you want to send that separately, you'll be given some contact info to send those into us, and you'll be contacted by one of our representatives after the meeting. So again, thank you guys for joining. Welcome, and we'll start moving forward. Quick intro here. I'm Josh Campanaro. I'm an account executive here at PairSoft on the new sales side. So I'll be a representative for you all. If any questions come up or you'd like to see a more specific demo of either solution after the fact. We also have Janet Martin and Tammy Bauer on the line. They're our senior sales consultants and engineers. They're going to be doing the demos. They've got plenty of experience with both products, so they'll be walking you through as we move forward. Really, the reason that we put on this webinar today is to show our customers the full circle solution that PairSoft offers, all the way from requisition and procurement, supplier management on the workplace side, through the AP invoice automation, transaction automation, and document management with PaperSave. We also have a payment management platform now that was introduced last year. So that's something that you all can utilize to really make it a full procure-to-pay solution from PairSoft, all the way from the creation of purchase orders through getting your vendors paid in a secure and timely fashion. So I know that the audience is a little bit of a mix here. We have some folks that are currently using our workplace solution. We have some folks using PaperSave. Really, the goal is to let you know that these can be utilized hand in hand and all the way through getting requisitions approved to purchase orders going out to your vendors, really controlling that spend from the very top level through the processing of invoices, matching invoices to purchase orders inside of the ERP, really robust AP automation solution. When you get to utilize them both together, you're really kind of taking the best pieces of both, right? You're getting that repository for all your documents, all your purchase orders are stored in one place and viewable and retrievable from the ERP. And then through the PairSoft Pay tool that we now offer, getting your vendors paid in a really secure fashion through our partner Finexio. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our expert, Janet. She's going to walk through a workplace demo for you, and then we'll move on to the PaperSave side of things with that invoice processing.
All right, thank you, Josh. Welcome, everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And we are going to dive right into the workplace procurement. So today I'm actually going to be demoing workplace with our GP integration, but we do also integrate with BC, both for workplace and PaperSave. Workplace has a lot of tools. It is an out-of-the-box integration. Tools not only to kind of help you point those end users into the direction what to buy, where the company wants to spend money. We also support some of those GP add-ons. So when we're looking at binary stream MEM, PO commitments, encumbrance, project accounting, we support all of those. Using that PO commitment interface or encumbrance is going to really allow you to check those budgets before you're approving things. And you're going to actually see that and how it works in a demo environment today. I'm not going to go directly into requisition entry. As you can see right here in the middle of my screen, we do have catalogs. So Workplace supports two different types of catalogs. One is the punch-out catalog. If you're not familiar with punch-out, there are many vendors out there in the industry that support punch-out. Amazon being one of the top vendors. CDW, Dell, Best Buy, Staples, OfficeMax. You work with the vendor, you get your specific catalog set up with the vendor, and then we have an integration to it. We also support internal catalogs, and internal catalogs are catalogs that you're going to actually set up in Workplace and you're going to manage. So I'm going to give an example of an internal catalog here. I have one. I named it by vendor, Best Buy. But you could have a catalog called office supplies, and you could have a mixture of different items. And those pricing and vendors, and even default in a GL account if there's specific GL accounts that you want those supplies charged to. So you can even connect a little picture here using a URL, giving that end user that kind of online shopping experience, even though you're managing it. As things are discontinued or prices changed, you would go in and update this catalog. It's really starting to let procurement control that spend. As you know, if everyone's buying from different suppliers and somebody from Staples and Office Max, Office Depot, when you can kind of direct and kind of pick that source of vendor of here's where we're going to buy all of our office supplies, you're really putting and spending more dollars with that vendor. In turn, then you're really starting to manage spend because you have time for negotiation, maybe free freight, some early pay discounts, some rebates, all of those things, kind of putting you into that control spend management thinking rather than, hey, I just need to create a purchase order. I'm going to start with that Amazon punch out catalog. So you're shopping, everybody uses Amazon probably at home, and you log on and it is actually connected to your account, put some items in your cart, you check out, those goods show up at your door. When we connect to a corporate account, we are going to send them the purchase order after it's been approved. But what we're really doing right now is we're going through and we're going to add the items to a shopping cart that's going to help us create that requisition. So here I'm using a stapler as an example. I have different ways that I can purchase it, but right away I see that it's in stock. When I'm looking at items, I can see when it's going to be delivered by. This is really going to cut down on all those PO change orders. Like how many times do you send a PO to a vendor? They come back, well, we don't have this, but we have this. So by using these punch out catalogs, it's really going to reduce down on knowing whether or not it's available right away. I'm going to continue adding items, things that I need from Amazon, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this. When I submit this, this is the first time you're going to see the requisition entry screen. And I could have gone directly into requisition entry, but I wanted to kind of show those tools on my dashboard. When I checked out of the cart, it brought all of that information in. This is my vendor ID that I set it up on here in Workplace, but this is the vendor ID that we will find in BC or in GP. In my environment for GP, I have GL accounts defaulted in from the vendor. Not always used. I can actually search and select a different GL account here. And then of course that shipping method came in again from that vendor. But if I have rights, I can change it. I've also been assigned a department. Departments are important in Workplace because you may want to use them for routing purposes. I'm going to go ahead and save this line. I can go back out and shop additional catalogs. So this is a requisition, unlike a PO. When you are creating a purchase order, you have to select your vendor, and then here's all the items that I want to buy from this vendor. When we're creating a requisition, it's actually, here are all the things that I'm needing to buy. And it can be a mix of different vendors on a requisition. I can go out and shop and add more lines from one of my punch out or internal catalogs. We also support shopping lists, and shopping lists can be set up 3 different ways. An end user could set up a shopping list, and that could be like, here's all my favorite things that I purchase all the time. A department manager can set up a shopping list, and only people assigned to their department or maybe purchasing on behalf of their department would be able to see that list. And I do have one here called IT supplies. So my IT manager went in and said, here's all the available IT items. Not only have they listed that, but behind the scenes, they've said, here's the vendor we're going to buy it from, and here's the GL account that I want you to use. So in this case, I need a printer, so I'm going to put in a quantity of 1, and I also need that cable, and I'm going to load those items. Those are now being added to this requisition, got my item and description, pricing, and then here is the vendor. So both of these are being purchased by Advanced Office Systems, and then I have that GL account. We also support services, so if you are creating service POs, so I am going to actually enter, and this is, things that are not in the catalog, not on the shopping list. Maybe I've gone out and I've gotten my own quote. I need a new, desk or an office chair. But for today's purposes, I need some office cleaning. So I'm going to go ahead and let's spell that right. So it prints right on the PO, and it is 2 hours, and it's going to be $150 an hour. And now I'm going to select my vendor. So Josh talked a little bit earlier about it is an out-of-the-box integration. So the minute that I click on that Zoom, I'm going to see all of my active vendors that are available to purchase from in GP. We also have a way in Workplace that we can mask it so that they only see certain classes of items, depending on the class ID. But for today's purposes, I have mine set up as name contains. This is the way that I like to search. I don't know the name of the cleaning company. I know it contains cleaning. I have 2 returns there, and I'm going to go ahead and select that Allied Office Cleaning. Populated that GL account, but let's say that it didn't, and let's talk about GL accounts for a moment. So GL accounts can be added anywhere throughout the process. So if I feel like my end users just don't understand accounting, I can hide this all together. They never have to think about a GL account. Maybe that approver adds the GL account, or maybe that purchaser or buyer before creating that PO. But if I do click on the Zoom or I start to type the search, I'm going to get a list of all of the GL accounts. Now, this is something that we actually don't need everybody to see all of these GL accounts. So we do have the ability to mask it. We can even mask it by department. But for specifically, if I'm looking for maybe some supplies, and in my chart of accounts, my first 3 digits actually represent a particular department. In your case, that might be a site. If you're using GP, BC may be a location. But so I can only set this up so that they're only maybe going to see expense accounts beginning for their department. So very easy for them. They have a very short list and actually see and select from. And just went ahead and clicked on that, and it added it in. With our PaperSave integration, we do have the ability, as Josh said, kind of really that full procure-to-pay. I do have the ability to add attachments in Workplace. However, when I do, they are going to append over in PaperSave, and they will also, for GP, they're going to append at the transaction level. So I'm going to click on my paperclip. I'm just going to populate that window. I'm already signed into my PaperSave account, and I'm going to click on New. It's opening up that PaperSave tile window. I can drag and drop files here. So if it's something that I've got saved in a file or on my desktop, I can just move it over. But I'm going to go ahead and attach a copy of this office floor plan, and it is scanned it. I'm going to save it and hop back over to Workplace. And here I've got my scanned copy not only attached here at the line, but when I click into the line and as this goes through the process, everybody can see that attachment. So if, maybe I did go and get a quote, wouldn't that be great to have, maybe your policy is, for buying something and we do quote it, we need to go out and get 3 quotes. We can attach as many attachments as needed. They'll all be listed here in the drop down, and I can flip back and forth. Workplace also has the ability to add comments. So we've got two types of comments. A vendor comment is going to print on the PO. So keep in mind, each line here could be representative of a different vendor. This line I have two, both lines have the same vendor. So we'll see that create one purchase order, but I can put a vendor comment on it if needed. We also have internal comment. Internal comments really just for notes, something I want to tell my approver. Everyone will be able to see this information throughout the process. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And then I talked a little bit about PO commitments and encumbrance, which are both related to GP. As I'm adding and I'm selecting GL accounts, it's giving me warnings. It's saying, wait a minute, these lines are over budget. So if I want to happen to look at the budget, I can go into the details and I can see right away. And so can my approvers and the purchaser prior to creating this PO. Maybe somebody catches it down the line that it's over PO commitments because they use the wrong GL account. But I have that information here. As we start to process this and we go through that process, we're going to start keeping that log, who submitted it, date, time, and stamp, who's approved it, and we'll kind of look at that throughout the process. Once I have all my lines in, I'm going to go ahead and submit it for approval. Workplace has, again, it says, wait a minute, you're over budget. Do you still want to submit? So ample of warnings there to let everybody know. And now it is moving on to approval. Workplace has some very robust routing rules. So we can route by line level or by header. And when I talk about header, it could be, hey, I'm Janet, I'm in the sales department. When I submit a requisition, it's going to go to our sales manager. But maybe because it's over a certain dollar amount, it then needs to go to the VP of sales. But then maybe I used an asset GL account. You can even put accounting to verify and approve that line. They may look at this and say, oh, you know what? It's only $300. I'm just going to expense it out, change that GL account because they really don't need to depreciate something of that small amount. So you have plenty of times throughout that approval process, depending on your organizational chart, to really catch things before that purchase order is actually created. Now, as far as the alerts for the email, so we do have email notifications that do go out in real time. Here's the one that we just did together. Workplace has 3 different ways in which you, an approver can approve. They can reply to this email, not even log into Workplace. They can go to each line, approve or disapprove, or they can approve the entire requisition through email. Great for managers that are running around and not always at their desk. They also have their mobile app. They can approve or disapprove on their mobile app. They can, however, maybe they've been receiving emails all day long, click on the hyperlink, and that's going to take them back to Workplace where they'll log in, and they're going to see all of those requisition lines waiting on their approval. So I have 8 out there waiting on my approval. Workplace does have the ability to send reminder emails, and you get to kind of set that time. Maybe it's 24 hours, 48 hours that they need to approve. If not, you can send that reminder and email. We also have the ability to have alternate. So if I'm going to be out of the office, I can go in and I can set my alternate, turn it on. Anything that would have come to me is now going to go to my alternate. I can also set up my calendars as these are all the days I will be out of the office, and Workplace will turn that on and off and make sure that their alternate receives anything waiting on their approval. But for today's purposes, I'm going to go right into Workplace. I have different filters, different ways, but I'm going to load everything waiting on my approval. I have 2 requisitions out there, at a very high level, showing me, and it's already telling me something's over budget. I'm going to expand the lines. This is the one that we just entered together. I can go through each line. I can approve or disapprove. I can even put a note in as to why I'm disapproving it. But I really want to look at those vendors and those GL accounts. I can move through relatively quickly, go back to those lines. I see there's a comment. I can see it here, so I can click on it and I can view that comment. I can add comments if I would like to, but I'm going to go ahead and approve everything, and I'm going to process it. It's now, there's that attachment that we did together. It's now looking at the routing and determining the next person in line. Once it's been fully approved, and that end user is going to be able to kind of follow along on their dashboard. Sometimes they're your biggest advocate when their things are not getting approved. They can see exactly who it's waiting on approval and reach out as well. Once it's fully approved, it's going to go over to our procurement group or our buyers, or sometimes it's the accounting department. They're really that final set of eyes to kind of review everything, make sure it's coded correctly. They normally will have edit and review. If you do have a full procurement department, they may be looking at something. They may change the entire line. They may change the vendor. If they have the authority to do so, they certainly can. If they're changing prices and you need to reroute it for approval, you certainly can do that as well. I can go through each one of those lines. It looks a lot like that approval session, right? And go through and checking down things. Maybe I have an attachment that I want to append, or maybe as a buyer, there are some comments that I want to add myself to print on that PO. I also am getting that warning again. So everybody's been warned before we create this PO that I have items over budget. I may want to look to see who's all approved this and what that budget is. I can do that right here from that screen as well. Now with GP, and I'm going to go ahead, and with BC, I should say as well, when I do an order all, I'm saying I want to order everything here. I'm actually on this one. I'm going to go back and I'm going to hold this one. Maybe I need to go ask that user some additional information. They haven't gotten back with me. I'm not going to create the PO yet. And then I'm going to simply process. It's looking over in GP right now, and it's looking for the next available PO number. When we create the PO, we're also going to create it over in GP. So that's going to populate here. And let me go back through. Sorry about that. My screen just kind of blinked out on me. And now I have those POs sitting here. Here's my Amazon one. I'm going to go back one. Here is the services that I did. And then I also had that printer and that cable as well. So they're all sitting in GP. I do have the ability to receipt in Workplace. If you don't have a receiving process in place, we can do that two-way match with PaperSave. When we receive that invoice, we can receive that PO at the same time. But you can have the receiving process in place. And using our receiving wizard, you can set it up. So maybe you want the end users to do the receiving. So if that's the case, then maybe you only want to give them access to their own POs and not other POs in the system. And I'm going to just move this back one. And this was that stapler that we actually ordered. I've received it. I've opened that box. I have a packing slip. So I'm going to go ahead and load it. We do have the ability to also do short receiving. So maybe I ordered 100, I only got 50 today. We can receive that 50, and then that PO will stay open for the additional 50 when received. I have the ability to attach a packing slip And if I do so, then that is also going to be available over in GP to be able to be viewed at that level. But I'm simply going to go ahead and check the box, and I'm going to click on process. It's now looking at GP. It's looking to see if I have any open GP receiving batches. I actually do. So it just posted this to this batch over in GP. So let's move over to the receiving. Actually, I'm going to back out and go from the beginning. We're going to go into purchase order batches. I'm going to click on that zoom. I'm going to double click on that receiving batch right here. Look at the transactions in this batch. And now I'm going to go to the last one. And just like that, I mean, no time at all. Here is that receipt sitting over here in GP, available to post. Obviously, if it was the inventory item, the minute I post, it's going to update that stock. Workplace does have some reports throughout the system. One of the reports that I really like, we call it our on-the-fly report. So depending on the user and their security, if I'm in accounting or procurement, when I come in and I click on find requisition, I may only see my own. From a department manager, and I'm over 3 departments, I may see requisitions for all 3 departments, all determined around security. But I have many ways that I can come in and look up information. So all of the fields, and some of them I had it hidden earlier, but all of the fields in Workplace are here. But if I'm kind of looking for, hey, how many printers has Janet Martin purchased this year? I have a list here. I can export this out and have a nice Excel report, and therefore I can manipulate it, filter, and go through that. I can see where I bought it, when I bought it, who I purchased it from, and that cost. I do know that accounting, sometimes they really like to know by GL account. So they may see something over in a journal entry and wonder, what is this? Certainly can come into Workplace, put in that GL account and look at all the different lines that's been posted to that GL account. I think I've gone through everything, Josh. Let me know if I didn't, but I'm pretty sure that was kind of rapid speed today since we have so much to cover in a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that we can move over to Tammy.
Yep, I will turn it over to Tammy. You can share your screen and we'll dive into the PaperSave invoice automation part of it.
Wonderful. All right, you should be seeing my homepage of PaperSave. So we're going to kind of pick this up from at the end of Janet's process. And I'm going to just go in, and now Janet and I don't work in the same GP environment. So, but I am going to just kind of give you an example and show you what really transpired. So when she created a transaction or that PO transaction, PaperSave becomes that supporting document. So I just went into the latest one I did. So you can see that PO that was created along with the supporting document. Same thing holds true if you go to a receiving transaction. So we're going to pick it up from an invoice and what happens when that invoice comes in. So whether you're doing what we refer to as a two-way match, which is the receiving shipment invoice, or you're doing the receiving inside of Workplace and a three-way match, the purchase invoice or the enter match, PaperSave gives you the ability to capture that invoice and send it through an approval process if need be, if it doesn't match the receiving transaction data for that purchase order and so on. I'm going to take you through an approval process for some, and with others, I'm not going to. So I've already captured the documents. They can get into PaperSave many different ways. But as an accounts payable admin, I'm managing a lot of invoices, PO related, non-PO related. Where are they? When are they due? And one of the things that PaperSave gives you that is a tool that I believe I wish I had when I was an AP admin is our dashboard. This dashboard is virtually a snapshot, an overview, whatever you want to call it, of all of the invoices that are sitting in my workflow that are PO related, waiting for things to be processed. So it's basically telling me I've got 42 invoices that total just under $140,000. I can see when they fall due, and obviously I'd be real concerned about this one that's past due. And because of that, I can drill down into it and literally see where that document is, who owns it, and lo and behold, I'm the culprit, and why that invoice is past due. And I can tell you I use old dates. So we're just going to go ahead and pretend that this one's really not past due and click here. But I can actually take action on items that are truly sitting in the workflow, right? So if these two are past or coming due, I can see who owns them, where they are, and really what the dollar amount is and what needs to take place. I also can get a bird's eye view of who owns what, right? So if I found out that Angie is out of the office and isn't going to be returning for an extended period of time, just like in workplace, I have the ability to take some actions. If Angie forgot to turn on her out of office, well, guess what? I can redirect these and change the owner and move these over to somebody on her level that will be able to, or above her, who will be able to take these invoices and review them on her behalf. PaperSave also gives the ability to set that out of office so that when you are in a workflow and things are directed to specific individuals, when they are out of the office, they can be redirected so that those documents don't sit idly waiting for that person to return. So this is the dashboard, and this is automatically populated when invoices are brought into the system. And that happens because of our OCR, optical character recognition. So I'm going to use my toggle bar over here and get to my first step of the workflow. So I'm going to show you a quick Visio. I'm going to take you through the review. We're going to go through the approval process if need be. And then we also are going to talk to you about PaperSave's or PairSoft Pay's portion of the closing the circle. This is the invoice portion of it, where the invoices come in and then they create that payables transaction inside of GP or Business Central. So either one, we're going to talk about that integration. But let's go ahead and look at one of these items that have come in. So when a document is captured, OCR happens, optical character recognition. And you'll notice that a lot of the data has already been entered in, and that's because of the OCR. We capture the vendor information, we validate that there's an actual vendor that matches that inside of your accounting system, again, GP or Business Central. We also bring in the invoice date, or excuse me, the invoice number, the invoice date. We can calculate a due date based on terms pulled from the vendor record or card. We can find a due date on the invoice, or you can pick a due date like I do, always way into the future. We pull in the dollar amount on the invoice. Then we pull in the purchase order number. And once we find the purchase order number, if this is a three-way match, which this is, PaperSave will then pull all the line items for every receiving transaction inside of GP corresponding with that PO number. So we're behaving just like that auto receive functionality inside of GP or, again, Business Central to pull in those line items. So this happens to be a perfect match. So nobody needs to approve it in my world. So at this point, all I have to do is hit submit, and it will automatically create that GP, in this case, GP transaction, or it will create that purchase invoice transaction inside of BC. Now, one of the things I am going to tell you that I have turned off is my duplicate notification, but all of my invoices are duplicates. So in order for GP to actually accept this, I have to change the invoice date. So I'm going to, or excuse me, the invoice number. So I'm going to just go ahead and change that really quick. Now, I will tell you, for those of you who are using PaperSave, you're fully aware of that. For those of you who are not using PaperSave at any capacity, whether it's for non-PO or PO related invoices, that notification will be brought to your attention by a bubble that says, hey, this is a duplicate. And we're checking GP for this information as well as future steps of the workflow. So at this point, since it's a perfect match, all I have to do is hit submit to GP, and the document, all of that data is passed over to GP, and that, because it's a three-way match, that enter match purchase invoice transaction is created, and then I get the next item in my list of items. Again, found the invoice, all the invoice information, found that purchase order, and then pulled in those items. Now, let's say that it didn't find a purchase order. So let's go ahead and we'll delete some of these items here. Yes, it's going to keep telling me that it doesn't match, and I know that, right? So let's say the OCR didn't find the PO number, or that in the purchase order number wasn't on there. This lookup is literally looking up to the PO transactions or the receiving transactions inside of GP or Business Central for this particular vendor. So as soon as I click on that, again, tab off of it, all of those line items will be populated, so that then it's saying, all right, these are the line items that match up to this PO for those receiving transactions. Now, let's say that something isn't on the PO, or excuse me, isn't on the invoice that's on the PO. All I need to do is delete that. If the items invoiced for are different than what is received, I can make those changes, and you can actually set rules that say, hey, anything that is of certain variance percentage, accounting can make those changes and submit. But if it's a certain dollar amount or percentage over that, then I have to send it to a reviewer, right? Oops, I know that doesn't match. Yes, there's my duplicate. It's telling me that it's a duplicate. I'm going to go ahead and send this to a reviewer because I want them to maybe approve a certain area or a certain item on that, right? Now we're going to go ahead and put freight in there for $24. I can put that in. It can also pick that up for that dollar amount as well. And I can go ahead and send that to a reviewer. And it's telling me that it is a duplicate. I guess I do have this turned on in this particular workflow. I apologize. I said I didn't. We're going to go ahead and change that so that I can send it off, because it won't let it move. And then I get that next item in the stack. So for receiving transactions, we're pulling the purchase order number and looking at all of the line items that have been received for that PO in the receiving transactions. For a two-way match, all we're doing then is looking to the purchase order transaction. All right. And it's, of course, there's freight that needs to be added to this as well. And we can capture that. If for some reason it doesn't capture it, one of the tools that PaperSave allows is this point and click, and I can populate it by pointing and clicking, and then I can teach it to find that freight if for whatever reason the OCR didn't find it. And then again, all I have to do is hit, we're going to change this number here, submit, and it creates that transaction. So let's take this full circle here, and I'll go into GP and we'll open up the receiving purchase enter match. So when it creates the transaction, this is my Fujitsu. It might be a minute before those come through. It does take just a second or two, but PaperSave gives you this notification, right? So again, if I'm at this transaction and I click on it, I'm going to see the document that supports that transaction. But remember, we might also have documents related to the receiving transactions and the purchase order. Well, PaperSave can give you the opportunity to see those documents right from here. That bubble notification is the bubble notification that there's a document related to this transaction. But I can also come up to additional and say show interrelated, and this is going to pull any document that actually was associated to the purchase order, the receiving transactions, and of course that invoice. So if by clicking on this, I see the purchase order, I see the packing slip, and then of course that invoice. So let's go back to, I'm going to flip through here and let's go to, let's go to the approver. So if something does go through the approval process because there's questions and it needs to be validated, or maybe a packing slip needs to be associated with it, or you know, if there are services and it's a two-way match, the receiver of those services needs to at least say yes, those services have been received. They do have the ability to come into PaperSave. Again, I get to see and do everything because I'm an admin, but if this was Bruno would only see his invoices. So let's go ahead and narrow this down to Bruno. When he comes into PaperSave, he might only have the ability to look at his documents. And when he looks at this, he can hit approve or reject. If he has to reject something because he's not going to agree to whatever's on the invoice or those items, he has to put in a reason for rejection. But once he hits approve, it leaves his inbox, his PaperSave queue, and it moves to the last step of my workflow for an invoice that's called submit to GP or submit to Business Central. All right. And PaperSave is tracking all of those approvals and where that document has been. And again, at this step of the process, I'm going to put in that. I'm going to hit submit. It creates that transaction and moves to the next step of the process. So from a PaperSave standpoint, in terms of invoices, you're going to have the ability to capture those documents, match them against the receiving and or purchase order transactions, and get them automatically into GP or Business Central without having to do that coding. The next step of the process that PairSoft brings to the table in closing this full circle from procurement to invoicing to pay is our ability to now pay your invoices. So PairSoft Pay works in conjunction with your accounting system, GP and or Business Central, and it works with a portal that allows us to go in and pay your suppliers check, ACH, V-card, or wire, however they've decided to get paid. And the payments will be processed out of that system, but all of the communication is sent back to your ERP system, GP or Business Central. So I'm going to go into a different workflow here because I have different processes for all of my scenarios, but we're going to go into the payment review step. So again, a workflow might end at that completed. You don't have to have pay, but this is really the next step in the automation process. That document in my world went from submit to GP to then the approval review or payment review step, or payment batching step, whatever you want to call it. But all of these invoices now have transactions created inside of GP, payables transactions, again, whether they're PO related or non-PO related, and they move over to this step. And this is really where the batch for payment is going to be built. So think about it when you're in the accounting system, GP or Business Central, and you're building that batch. What is it based on? Due date, vendors, dollar amount, maybe a company, what have you. You're going to be able to come in here and filter these documents to a group of documents that you want to send through the approval process for payment. So I'm going to say due date, and we're going to go out and let me see what my due dates are. Well, they're all, okay, let's do greater than or less than, equal to or less than, what do I have? The 9th or the 8th, I think. Yeah. So I'm going to just narrow this list down. So let's just say these are the 8 items I want paid, right? So we know that if I click on any of these items here, their invoices, we're going to see that the workflow has happened, right? So they came in, they were routed, they were approved. There's a voucher or a transaction inside of GP or Business Central that has been created. And now we want to submit these for approval. So this would be like that batch that you're sending over to the VP of Finance or the CFO or whoever is actually saying, yes, let's go ahead and pay these, right? And of course, it's going to give me some routing information that I need to put in, but we'll move that over to the approval and pay step. So once the invoices are routed for approval, this is where an individual is going to say, yep, this invoice we want to pay. I can see that, yes, it's been sent over and it's been approved. So we're going to go ahead and pay this. And I just look at these. I don't have to look at them one at a time. Again, I could click this button here and say approve and pay. These documents then move to what's called a completed step. And in this case, the data goes in 2 directions. It goes over and it creates the payment transaction with inside of GP or Business Central. And then it goes over to the payment solution so that the check can be printed, the V card can be submitted, or the wire or the ACH. But you will see the completed workflow. And this document is accessible throughout all of the areas with inside of GP. I can see that the payment was created, the payment transaction was created, and when it was paid and in process. PaperSave then, as the document gets paid, comes in and it starts updating all of this information. When was it paid? How was it paid? And is it complete? Meaning, has the supplier actually received those funds? So we're going to go out here to the payment portal here. So keep in mind that anything that's submitted for payment I type my pass. Of course, I didn't type it right. Oh, PairSoft.com. That's correct. Let's try that one more time. There we go. All right. So document or that data goes in 2 directions. It goes in and it creates a payment transaction inside of the ERP system. And then it comes out into the PairSoft Pay portal where your payments are going to be created. These are the orders. Those are the orders of things that are going to be paid and when, and you have the ability to see all of the data, all of the transactions, filter through and see what the status is of a payment, when it was completed. All of this data is there for you, and it will continue to communicate back and forth with Business Central or GP until it's what we call settled. And then that is where that reconciliation is done and the payment transaction is updated that it was settled. So at the end of the month, you're not sitting there with a bunch of outstanding checks and things that you're having to research. PairSoft Pay is going to be able to do all of you, giving you a dashboard into all of the payment information, into the orders or into supplier activity. So you can see everything that a supplier has been paid. Now, keep in mind, my data is pretty limited because I'm really not paying anything, but you do have that capability to see all of the information in detail for each of your vendors on or suppliers on when they were paid. I know that's a lot of information. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. I want to leave some time open for that. So unless there is anything else, Josh, that you think that I should show for PaperSave or PairSoft Pay, I'll turn it back over to the team.